taking a look at Rise's team specifically, we have the Diggersby, we have the Toxapex as a little bit more of interesting picks. And then, of course, that Air/Mandibuzz, which has been much more popular and I think has had a stronger performance today than the Snarl variant.
It's going to be a better answer to that Shadow Drapion for sure. And, you know, Mandibuzz in general is a relatively solid answer to the Shadow Feraligatr, two Pokemon that Elite likes to run, but does not want to see that Azumarill whatsoever. It's interesting, on both of these teams of 6, 0 grass Pokemon whatsoever. There is some grass coverage for the Ariados, knowing that it can run Trailblaze, but with 3 water Pokemon on the side of Elite, knowing that there are no grasses and no grass coverage on the side of Rise, the water Pokemon may be free to run wild.
And we are going to see which trainer is going to run off with victory here. We have 2 regional champions looking to add another first place medal to their collection. Will it be Reis2Occasion, who has been so consistent in his accomplishments every single season, getting a regional championship, or will it be Elite taking the championship here in San Antonio, Texas?
Yeah, Rise wants to continue his streak 4 consecutive seasons with a regional title. That would be unprecedented at this point. Meanwhile, Elite, it's been a little bit, I think since the 2023 season, since he's had a win. He was the finalist, don't forget, in Baltimore. So a lot of meaningfulness to both of these trainers should they capture this title. It's only going to be one, though. This is it, the grand finals. Let's get the hype in the chat, in the crowd. What a lead for Elite. The Shadow Kanto Marowak into the Shadow Drapion.
And Shadow Feraligatr comes out as a safe swap. I don't really see which one Elite is going to switch into. It looks like Elite is planning on staying in with the Shadow Kanto Marowak, because as we've talked about, the Shadow Kanto Marowak can kind of just mud slap down in these situations.
Shadow Kanto Marowak is an absolute bully here and has 2 Bone Clubs ready to go. Elite, we've seen time and time again, willing to just 2-shield his Shadow Kanto Marowak. Rise puts up the Protect Shield here. Now the Shadow Kanto Marowak can actually farm all the way down. Rise did not want to have Elite throw that Bone Club, so he actually throws on improper timing, just lets a full Mud Slap go through, knowing that he's just going to get farmed down anyway. And yes, 2 more Mud Slaps will be enough. Elite comes out with a ton of energy here. There is a Mandibuzz ready to go here. I could actually see just Elite being willing to just let this matchup play out versus the Mandibuzz. He could even swap into his Drapion, though, knowing that there's no hard punish. Yeah, now that the Mandibuzz has been revealed, he's seen the entire team. He knows that his Drapion is very safe. He could even try to force out this Mandibuzz and to set up an Azumarill matchup later on.
This is Shadow Kanto Marowak's world. We are just living in it. Shadow Kanto Marowak again throwing another Rock Slide. I don't see a single win condition for Reis2Occasion. This Rock Slide is going to connect, take the Mandibuzz down into the red, and this is going to leave Shadow Drapion to have to take out an Azumarill.
Oh my gosh.
Another Shadow Drapion, and is still going to have to like Poison Sting down the Kanto Marowak. So it's going to take some damage before it can even get to the other 2 Pokemon.
Yeah, you're going to take at least 1 Mud Slap here. 2 Poison Stings do it. You don't have to get through 2 Pokemon, and you only have 1 Protect Shield. I think that you're just going to be bringing in your Shadow Drapion. If you land 1 Aqua Tail, this is going to be probably bubble down range. So Rise definitely with his back up against a wall. A very tough lead, but didn't really have a response. When you're ABA weak to Shadow Kanto Marowak, after Elite plays Shadow Kanto Marowak in all of his victories, yeah, I think that you may have to go back to the drawing board on that one, Rise.
I would tend to agree, but if anyone can come back from a rough game 1, I think it is Reis2Occasion. And you have to remember, Reis2Occasion sitting pretty on the winner's side of the bracket. Elite's got to win 2 best-of-5s, but he's taken his first step in order to do that by setting his Shadow Kanto Marowak up for success with 2 very strong supporting roles in the back.
Yeah, Rise is going to try and land 3 crunches here, hope for some debuffs, and hope that that 3rd crunch after the Poison Sting will be enough to knock out, but he's still going to have to come out of this matchup with energy, knowing that Elite has an Aqua Tail stored, and he is now in range that one is going to knock out. But Elite reaches the player up with his Azumarill. This will be enough to knock out the Shadow Drapion, and Elite, with his trusty Shadow Kanto Marowak, takes game number 1. 2 more, and he'll reset this bracket.
And you can already see Reis2Occasion picking up his pen and doing just like you said, back to the drawing board. Has to come up with a strategy, a combination of Pokemon that is going to neutralize that Shadow Kanto Marowak. What on his team is best positioned to do that? I think the Feraligatr, depending on, again, the shield situation, can do a pretty good job. I think the Mandibuzz is also a really solid answer.
Yeah, no, it's a tough situation. And taking a look back at that replay, you can see he swapped in the Feraligatr and just get farmed all the way down in that 2-shield matchup. I think on his notes he's writing down, okay, Shadow Kanto Marowak, a good Pokemon. Have answers for it. And to answer your question, Stephanie, I think the answers have to be yes, the Mandibuzz. The Feraligatr I think is a little bit risky because in the 2-shield matchup you lose that. What I would like to see is the Annihilate. I think the Annihilate has a ton of potential into Elite's team, just needs to watch out for that Azumarill, but Azumarill is realistically, and maybe Ariados are only going to be the hard answers to that Annihilate, and even then there's still play for it.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. The Annihilate can do some pretty good work against like that Shadow Drapion. It would love to see the Dugong.
Yep.
Even though counter's been nerfed, you can buff it with that Rage Fist to continue to ramp up the damage, kind of counteract the Icy Winds that the Dugong's going to be throwing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We keep seeing Elite bring the same team. It's the Shadow Kanto Marowak, the Shadow Drapion, and then hiding that Azumarill in the back, just saying, all right, well, I'm going to get alignment with the power of Mud Slap. I'm just going to force alignment and get my Azumarill aligned where it needs. And in fact, I'm not only going to get alignment, I'm also going to do a big dent into the next Pokemon that you bring in as well. Don't forget, Elite was able to reach 3 Rock Slides versus that Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz only got Air Slash damage that entire game. And let's say that it ends up shielding and taking out that Marowak, it's just going to get met by the Azumarill.
And so it looks like our trainers are locking in right now. Let's see, has Reis2Occasion got the play in his playbook to counter the Marowak? It's at it again in the lead. This time it's the Feraligatr sitting in the lead. But as we've seen it play out, Shadow Kanto Marowak, Elite can just invest 2 shields and just Mud Slap it down.
Yeah, he's essentially ABA weak to it again. 2 shield Shadow Kanto Marowak beats Shadow Feraligatr, and I think that's how Elite is going to play this. He does have an answer to the Shadow Kanto Marowak with that Diggersby, but don't forget, Elite has 3 Pokemon, 3 Water-type Pokemon, plus a Drapion that can hit for super effective versus Diggersby. It's definitely a risky Pokemon, and as you can see here, Elite will likely be playing out this 2-shield matchup. I could see Rise actually doing a quick switch out here, but let's see how he wants to play it, if he's just going to get farmed down or actually do a quick swap here.
Ooh, and we do see a quick swap into the Diggersby, which brings out that Azumarill. So Elite no longer hiding the Azumarill in the back, kind of forced to bring it out into the forefront, into this mid-game matchup.
Yeah, and you know, I don't really hate this play by Rise, but Elite is just prepared for it. He has the Azumarill ready to go, and he also, don't forget, has energy remaining on his Shadow Kanto Marowak. It is probably in Aqua Tail range, and with shields down, it is going to be a bit threatened. It doesn't win charge attack priority versus Drapion or versus Shadow Feraligatr, but Elite is still firmly in the driver's seat here. As long as he can get this Diggersby off the field, I think that's going to be a very uphill challenge for Rise.
Yeah, we see the Scorching Sands yet again. They're still Scorching Sands has a chance to attack debuff, but it's not guaranteed every time. And it looks like 0 for 2 on the Scorching Sands debuff here for Reis2Occasion.
Yeah, hard to justify a shield in this situation. Really, Diggersby has done everything that it can do, which is forcing out that Shadow Kanto Marowak. There may be an opportunity to get a big farm down here with Drapion, but no, Elite already ready to go here, has energy, needs to get his Bone Club off, but he's unable to do so. You can see the frustration in his face here because he knows that this Aqua Tail is going to knock out. Needed to throw the Bone Club before the Drapion reached a charge attack.
Yep, just a little late on the game there for Elite. So his winning Pokemon, the key to his success is out of the game. Has to rely on two other pretty great Pokemon. He's got the 2 best Pokemon in the meta, Shadow Drapion and Azumarill.
Okay, well, this is not over. You may force the Protect Shield here, and you're going to have to fire a Hydro Cannon if you're going to get this Drapion off the field. Yeah, that's exactly what Rise is going to do. I actually think that there may have been a farm down potential. No, would not have been able to farm down. Here comes the Hydro Cannon. This is not quite enough to knock out. If Elite is able to get a farm down here, get an Aqua Tail, and then reach a move on Azumarill, because the switch clock is going to be up, there may still be a win condition here. It's looking pretty slim, but here's the... Okay, saves the Aqua Tail. Maybe he thinks that he can win charge attack priority. He's outside of range of a crunch, potentially. No, it looks like he is within range. Elite really needed to throw that Bone Club. If he's able to throw that Bone Club, he gets the final Protect Shield, and I think he wins this game.
And there is the crunch to knock out. And then here is the Aqua Tail, but that is not going to quite be enough to knock this Shadow Drapion out. So this Aqua Tail damage is going to apply, but now the Poison Sting damage applies afterwards, and Elite's Drapion is knocked out. As you mentioned, as we both really highlighted in that game, it came down to that Bone Club and Elite's hesitation. And this is a game of half seconds.
Oh, yeah.
You have to be so on top of your game and so forward thinking, which Elite has been, honestly, throughout this entire tournament run. But remember, Elite's day has been long. Maybe that's been wearing down on him a little bit.
I think what happened is he got stuck in a 3-turn move. We talked about getting stuck in fast attacks before, and with a 3-turn fast attack, if you are not really on top of that Drapion's energy, it puts you in a position where, with how fast Drapion can pace to charge attacks, that you might be 1 turn behind or even charge attack priority. And like I said, when you're in range of Aqua Tail and shields down, Shadow Kanto Marowak, really its value starts to diminish. You had to throw that Bone Club right away. Do it on bad timing, it doesn't matter. You either have to lock in that super effective damage or pull that final Protect Shield if you're going to win that game too. Elite now needs to figure things out because he's now 2 games away from being knocked out of this tournament. I think that the strategy has been solid for him. Again, that Shadow Kanto Marowak, that Shadow Drapion, and the Azumarill in the back. But maybe this time, Reis actually brings a different strategy and maybe brings either the Diggersby or the Mandibuzz in the lead to counteract that Shadow Kanto Marowak. All right, DeFi, take us into this game number 3.
And Elite, if it works once, if it works twice, he thinks it's going to work 3 times. The Shadow Kanto Marowak in the lead, but this time Reis is ready for it with the Mandibuzz, forcing Elite really for the first time to swap out in this series into the Mandibuzz.
Well, I don't think that
into the Drapion.
Yeah, he swaps into the Drapion, and I don't know that Reis actually wants to swap out here. This is getting a bit awkward for him. The Shadow Drapion, if you bring in the Toxapex, well, then you don't have your Azumarill answer anymore. If you bring in the Feraligatr, you're behind energy, and you're going to lose swap. So Reis has to do some sort of chip and dip strategy here. Meanwhile, Elite is just getting switch clocks so desynchronized here, trying to find some wiggle room for this late game to get creative here. Reis has, I believe, almost 2 aerial aces. This is not going to knock out. Elite may even be able to try and force switch if he really wants here.
So Reis actually staying in this matchup. We thought maybe there would be a switch out opportunity, but now his Mandibuzz, that is his key answer to that Shadow Kanto Marowak, is down in the red. He's not going to be able to use it as a Shadow Kanto Marowak counter anymore.
Well, what's really, really baffling here to me is that you have 2 Pokemon that both lose in the 2-shield matchup to Shadow Kanto Marowak. As Elite now, you just bring in your Azumarill. Sure, you're going to be having your Azumarill eventually facing off versus this Toxapex, but what do you do versus that Shadow Kanto Marowak? This Mandibuzz is about to be removed from the field completely, and Elite may just be able to sweep with this Shadow Kanto Marowak.
That is what it has been doing time and time again today, really as the MVP pick for Elite. Here is the Toxapex, there's the Shadow Kanto Marowak, and we know how it goes. We've seen this matchup, I think this is the 3rd time.
Okay, so Elite's going to be using 2 shields here. He's going to be taken down to about half HP. He'll probably get 1 Protect Shield back if he throws this Bone Club after this next Hydro Cannon coming from the Feraligatr. He's almost guaranteed to land 1 Bone Club into this Toxapex. Will that one Bone Club plus some of the additional energy from that Azumarill be enough to knock it out? I don't think that Elite is out of this battle by any means.
No, so Elite has so much energy, is able to mud slap down the Feraligatr, and the Toxapex, again, it's going to take a minute for it to get up to that brine.
I believe it has 2 poison jabs. It needs an additional 6 poison jabs. You're going to reach this 3rd Bone Club before the brine is going to be available, and you're not really in a position where you can overfarm that much. Every Mud Slap that you're taking gets you closer and closer to Azumarill being able to take you out. 2nd Protect Shield has been used by Reis. Next Bone Club is ready to go. Now Reis, I believe he's only 2 poison jabs away from reaching that next charge attack. How low is this going to leave the Toxapex?
Ooh, the Bone Club takes it down to right about half health. 1, 2, and looking to make a catch, doesn't do it, and the Azumarill throws the Play Rough. This is resisted, but the Toxapex is really low.
I think 2 Play Roughs may be close to knocking out here with this bubble damage. It's going to be very close. Reis needs to farm up to 100 energy, needs to get a Sludge Wave, and then get to a Brine as well, but you're unable to get to both charge attacks. Here comes the Sludge. I think that he wants to undercharge this, go for a farm down, hope that he can hang on versus the Play Rough. It's going to be very close. Here's the next bubble. In comes the Play Rough. I think that he's going to be in bubble down range, and despite Reis getting the favorable lead with the Mandibuzz into the Shadow Kanto Marowak, this looks like it just may be too strong. You can see Reis shaking his head.
Yeah, he needed that's so tough. He needed to maybe do a little bit more of that damage. That is such a tough one. Reis kind of rubbing his hands together and thinking, okay, I've tried this strategy, this strategy, this strategy. I need to do something. The only time time that Reis has been able to win in this series was capitalizing on Elite making a mistake with that Bone Club. But Reis has to be able to play with a strategy that doesn't rely on his opponent making a mistake.
Stephanie, it's tough because when you bring the Mandibuzz and then you just let it go down essentially to the Drapion and, you know, some bubbles from the Azumarill, what you're leaving behind is a Shadow for Alligator and a Toxapex. Both of those Pokemon lose to Shadow Kanto Marowak. Even if you bring in that for Alligator, which you have to, instead of leaving it aligned versus that Toxapex, you can just 2-shield farm down and guarantee that you are going to get a Bone Club off and get that Toxapex in range that 2 Play-Roughs are going to knock out. So there hasn't been a formula now for Reis to win this game. And if he tries to bring Mandibuzz and another answer, like a Diggersby, like a Annihilate, then you're so weak to Azumarill.
It's tough. I'm wondering, again, it's show 6, pick 3. I'm wondering if just the 6 Reis brought, maybe he just doesn't have the tools in the toolbox today. Do you think there's any combination? I still would love to see that Annihilate, but at least give it a try. But again, like you said, if you bring the Annihilate, you have play against the Shadow Kanto Marowak, you have play against the Shadow Drapion, but you're so weak to Azumarill.
Okay, well, here we go. We are moving into game number 4. Elite 1 game away from resetting the bracket here in the grand finals. We see a Diggersby into a Shadow Drapion. Keep in mind though, okay, this is a positive matchup, but this is your only answer to Shadow Kanto Marowak. Despite this being a good matchup right now, Elite may be able to just get just enough chip damage to then take it out with the Dugong and just win with the Shadow Kanto Marowak in the back yet again.
It is definitely, like I said, it's Shadow Kanto Marowak's world. We're all just all these Pokemon are just living in it. Elite going ahead to shield up this Scorching Sands. Elite not afraid to invest shields early in the matchups and really just confident in his choices in lead.
Okay, getting 1 Protect Shield is super important for Reis though, because now it means that his Feraligatr can neutralize the Shadow Kanto Marowak. If it has 2 shields, you don't win. If it only has 1, you can get to 2 Hydro Cannons and take it off the field. Meanwhile, Elite though, he knows he needs to get this Diggersby off the field, and I like this that he's getting this Protect Shield here. It's making the Shadow Kanto Marowak potentially very strong again. Don't forget Dugong though. Dugong could be very strong here. Reis, meanwhile, throwing the Scorching Sands.
And the Scorching Sands will Elite protect the Drapion. This time, no, allows the Drapion to go down, maintaining shield parity, and there is the Dugong. And Reis actually making a quick swap into the Feraligatr.
Yeah, he wants to save the Diggersby to maybe get to a Scorching Sands versus what he's expecting to be the Shadow Kanto Marowak a little bit later on. This isn't a great position for the Dugong, but I think Elite is expecting that there's a Drapion hanging out in the back and wants to stick around in this matchup. He at least needs to land a charge attack first before he can bring in his Shadow Kanto Marowak to try and mud slap all the remaining Pokemon down.
And this drill run, is certainly going to help the Shadow Kanto Marowak in its mission, should Elite choose to bring it out. But first, Reis is going to throw a Hydro Cannon to bring the Dugong down into the red.
I think that you may be able to bring in the Shadow Kanto Marowak. I don't know. It's going to... Ooh, yeah, I don't think that's in 3 Mud Slap range. You actually have this Icy Wind ready to go. I think that at this point, the strategy for Elite is, okay, I hope that it's Toxapex or hope that it is the Drapion in the back. Okay, in comes the Drapion. A quick swap by Elite as well. This is a great spot for Elite. He is able to withstand one of these Aqua Tails, but let's not forget the energy on the Diggersby as well.
Yeah, so he's going to shield an Aqua Tail and then have to let the next one through. The Drapion should be able to get there. Reis2Occasion still has this 1 Protect Shield. He can choose to expend it here and potentially get to that other Aqua Tail on the Shadow Drapion.
What this sets up now, though, is that Elite gets a full farm down, and I believe he's going to come out of this matchup with a Bone Club. Yes, he is on these 3 cycle for Bone Club. He has it ready to go. If Reis ends up bringing in the Diggersby, the Bone Club's ready. You throw it. If he brings in the Feraligatr, he's just going to farm it down. Keep an eye on the switch clocks, though. There may be an opportunity for Reis to make a peekaboo play, bringing in the Diggersby and catching on the Shadow Feraligatr. No, the switch is not up!
It wasn't quite up. You saw him reaching for it. He thought maybe, but it was just barely not there. The Bone Club knocking out the Diggersby, the Feraligatr with nothing left in the tank. Elite has reset the bracket. We are going in to another grand finals.
Reis doing everything that he can to try and figure out a way to beat that Shadow Kanto Marowak. He has 1 resist the Mandibuzz, but he was unable to get the alignment. He wasn't able to get his Mandibuzz on the Shadow Kanto Marowak. He wasn't able to get the Diggersby Bee onto the Marowak. We never saw the Annihilate. That may be the one key, the one tech that we haven't seen just yet that he could potentially bring. But every single strategy that Reis was trying to employ didn't work. Even in that game number 2, Stephanie, I really think that was Elite's game to win that he threw away by not throwing that Bone Club.
Yeah, again, the game that Reis won, Reis was able to capitalize on Elite's mistake, but Elite has had flawless play in the other 3 games. Reis hasn't had any maneuverability to be able to capitalize on anything.
All Elite needs to do is make sure that he's taking out those answers to the Shadow Kanto Marowak, and then making sure that he is in a situation where he can either 1 shield farm down if it's a Drapion, or 2 shield farm down if it is a Shadow Feraligatr. So depending on what he sees, he can kind of start understanding and deciphering where he needs to invest the Protect Shields. It's almost always use them on the Shadow Kanto Marowak, but if he knows he's going to get his Shadow Kanto Marowak on the Drapion, he knows he only needs 1 shield. So he's adapting to each of these situations so flawlessly, and yeah, Reis has to figure something out and needs to figure it out quick.
I would tend to agree. We've really gone through all the options. When you only have 6 Pokemon on your belt, there's only so many combinations that can work. Both of us agree it's gotta be the Annihilate, it's gotta be the Mandibuzz, but if you bring them both, you're weak to a Azumarill.
Yeah, no, it's tough. And what you're also weak to is the Dugong. And I like the play from Elite in that last game. He's recognizing, okay, well, if you're bringing Toxapex, Azumarill just gets hard-walled by that. Okay, but I have another answer that beats your answers to my Shadow Kanto Marowak. My Dugong, it beats your Diggersby. My Dugong, it beats your Mandibuzz. Okay, maybe I just bring Dugong instead, knowing that it has better play into your other answer, Toxapex. So from a team comp perspective, Elite certainly has the advantages right now. Reis is going to have to figure out some sort of strategy. Maybe it's being ABA strong to that Shadow Kanto Marowak. He has to get the Diggersby. He has to get that Annihilate, or maybe even the Mandibuzz aligned versus that Marowak, and he just has not been able to do that so far.
He's got to be able to set a trap for Elite. Elite led the Shadow Kanto Marowak 3 out of those 4 games. 3 out of the 4 games. The only time he didn't lead it, he kept it in the back. So perhaps just playing ABA strong to the Shadow Kanto Marowak, maybe that's the key. But for some reason, Reis2Occasion just seems very hesitant to bring in the Annihilate, which I think could pair with the Mandibuzz potentially, or pair with the Diggersby.
It's just tough, like I said.
It's tough.
Weakness to Azumarill and weakness to Dugong. Now, the thing that I think Reis could potentially do is find a Pokemon that generates energy quickly, that has farm down potential. Something like a Shadow Feraligatr. If you're able to get Shadow Feraligatr up energy when there's only Shadow Kanto Marowak in the back, if you have 2 Hydro Cannons ready to go, you're going to immediately strip away those Protect Shields. Even if you're in a situation where you're down a shield, if you can get both of those Protect Shields back right away, that may be an answer, is a Pokemon up energy that Shadow Kanto Marowak has to shield and isn't able to just simply farm down. So there are options for Reis2Occasion here. He has not been able to find those options just yet. Elite has certainly been in the driver's seat here. The Shadow Kanto Marowak, the Azumarill, or the Dugong, and it's been the Shadow Drapion that's been pretty solid for him as well. He still has some other options that he could even bring as well. The Shadow Feraligatr, the Ariados. Let's see what he brings. This is the Grand Finals reset. Best of 5. Will Reis2Occasion or will Elite end up winning here? We have the Battle of the Waters, the Shadow Feraligatr into the Dugong, a positive lead for Reis.
Yes, Dugong again. I love the Dugong pick. It is able to slowly wear down an opponent with Icy Winds, even when it's resisted, but Shadow Feraligatr being able to pace so quickly to the Hydro Cannon, do the neutral Shadow Claws, is going to tear down at the Dugong as well. Yeah,
Reis has a little bit of a pacing advantage with this Feraligatr. Elite knows that he needs 2 charge attacks to knock out. He starts off by throwing this Icy Wind. This now means that the second Hydro Cannon will not be enough to knock out, and in the Zero Shield matchup, Elite should be able to take this. Reis, however, may do exactly like what I was talking about. Throw this Hydro Cannon, invest a Protect Shield, and then just farm all the way down with Shadow Claw to eventually unleash those Hydro Cannons versus what can only be a Shadow Kanto Marowak in the back.
Looks like he's protecting the Shadow Feraligatr, making sure it doesn't knock out, and then building up two Hydro Cannons. I don't think after the debuff this is going to be enough to quite knock out.
No, it's not going to knock out, but it does set up a potential farm down. Let's see. Yes, actually a quick swap out by Elite. Okay, this is 2 attack debuffs here, but attack debuff or not, you don't want to take a super effective Hydro Cannon, so Elite will be using his first Protect Shield. Look what's waiting in the back here. It is the Mandibuzz. This is even shields, 1 shield versus 1 shield. Finally, Reis is able to get one of his answers onto the Shadow Kanto Marowak.
and it has been a long time coming. It looks like this Mandibuzz, it is running Foul Play and Aerial Ace along with the Air Slash. So the Air Slash damage is going to add up as well as the charge attacks. Looks like he's going straight for the heavier hitting Foul Play.
2 Rock Slides do a good chunk of damage here, and let's keep an eye on the switch clocks yet again. They're actually almost up for a lead. What he may be able to do is land the second Rock Slide, maybe bring back in the Dugong and trying to get a quick farm down before the switch clocks are up. The thing we have to watch out for is this Ariados in the back. Positive play versus that Shadow for Alligator. It has good play into the Shadow Drapion as well, but it needs energy.
Oh, and we see a quick swap, like you mentioned, from Elite, bringing in the Dugong. Looks like Reis2Occasion popping only 1 bubble up or so, swapping out into the Feraligatr for a quick Shadow Claw down. But this leaves potential for Elite to get some energy on either get some energy on the Ariados or maybe even Mud Slap down.
No, I think you just go for Mud Slaps here. You're not going to be able to Mud Slap all the way down, I don't think. Oh, in fact, you just get farmed all the way down with Shadow Claws. You now have a Hydro Cannon loaded. You have to use your Protect Shield here. Elite has to hope for a miracle that there's something that he can beat in the back, but it's going to be the Shadow Drapion, and there's still that Mandibuzz as well, so you can reset any debuffs. I think this may be Rise's game. He may have found the formula in game number 1 of the Grand Finals reset.
Formula might have been Mandibuzz in the back. So now we're going to see this Lunge. Lunge is going to has a 100% chance of dropping Drapion's attack by 1 stage. So this Crunch is not going to do nearly as much. This Crunch isn't going to do nearly as much damage. We are going to see that damage applied. It takes it to about half, and with the Poison Stings, it's looking pretty good for Rise, and makes a catch of the Lunge, so to completely neutralize this energy coming from the Ariados.
A flashy but an unnecessary catch. Rise still has that Protect Shield. He could just shield that up and actually will be able to still get to that Crunch. With no debuff now, you're going to be able to just simply knock out with this Crunch. Rise making all the plays. Elite actually safe swapping into that Shadow Kanto Marowak, hoping that there's no answers in the back. A bit surprising to me, knowing that realistically there were several targets for that Shadow Kanto Marowak. But like I was saying before the match, if you're able to get energy on that Feraligatr to then throw into that Shadow Kanto Marowak, that could be the key to success here in this Grand Finals reset.
Yes, because as we've seen, in even shields and even energy, just starting from 0, the Marowak can just Mud Slap down. It's not worried about the Feraligatr. It doesn't have to worry about tanking a single Hydro Cannon. But here in this situation, it played out much differently because the Kanto Marowak and the Feraligatr were not aligned from the start of a battle.
Well, look, for Elite, I don't think that you can run Ariados and the Shadow Kanto Marowak together. That's too weak to Mandibuzz. Air Slash Mandibuzz, keep in mind, you're doing super effective damage into that Ariados. It's going to just be shutting it down. You're able to do a little bit of work with your Dugong there, but if Dugong is not lined up versus that Mandibuzz, not lined up versus that Diggersby, it's going to be a tough situation. I would have rather actually see him swap in that Ariados to draw out the Mandibuzz and then have the Shadow Kanto Marowak as a little bit of a freer Pokemon. He just wasn't able to do that.
I just want to call out again that beautiful undercharge in order to get the energy on the Feraligatr to be able to throw into the Ariados. That was a gorgeous undercharge on the side of Reis2Occasion. It is difficult to be able to get that down perfect.
Yeah, and it really forced Elite to actually make a swap that he didn't want to make. Let's move into game number 2. Grand Finals reset. Rise 2 games away from taking the title of Grand Champion for the 4th consecutive season. Elite needs to win 3 here. Shadow Kanto Marowak into Rise's Shadow Feraligatr. Yet again, 2 Pokemon that are relatively weak to the Shadow Kanto Marowak. Rise may be in exactly what he's seen, I believe, in game number 1 or game number 2 for the original Grand Finals.
Yeah, we've seen the situation play out. If you stick to this matchup and you play it out to the if Elite is willing to invest both of his Protect Shields, he's just able to Mud Slap down.
Yeah, and that's what's going to happen here. Reis2Occasion is 1 away from his next Hydro Cannon. He throws on good timing. Meanwhile, Elite gets the Mud Slap through. What Rise could do here is try and swap into his Drapion and try to get an Alcatail off, knowing that 2 Protect Shields have already been used. And that's exactly what he does. In comes the Drapion. Bone Club is ready to go, though. I think that you have to use a Protect Shield here. Now, what Elite can do, though, is swap into his own Drapion. I think that he's expecting a hard answer to the Shadow Kanto Marowak in the back. But no, instead, he brings in the Azumarill. Now it's going to be more difficult to deal with the Mandibuzz.
Yes, that Mandibuzz is starting to look a little bit better in the back. For now, though, we have the Poison Sinks and we have the Crunch. It would really help Reis to get an early debuff. Not going to happen for him, though.
What's also difficult here is that Elite, since shields are down, can simply knock out this Drapion with one charge attack. He can even overfarm here a little bit. He can even get out of this matchup if he wants. There are still tons of options for Elite right now. Reis2Occasion now at the Aqua Tail, but Elite throws the Ice Beam. This will be enough to knock out. This is going to bring back in the Shadow Feraligatr, and Shadow Feraligatr up energy is definitely going to be very scary. Switch Clock is not up for Elite. Yeah, Reis does not wait the Switch Clock. He wants to get energy here, but Elite at the Ice Beam is able to take out this Feraligatr.
And that Hydro Cannon, which can do so much damage, is just neutralized. The Hydro Cannon goes down with the Feraligatr, leaving only the Mandibuzz remaining. And Mandibuzz is not going to be able to air slash down. It's going to get to its attack around the same time that the Azumarill does. Azumarill's going to get to land this super effective damage.
Now that you've landed this charge attack, there's no way for Reis to win this game. You are simply so far behind. Even if you throw this foul play, I don't think it's going to knock out. And we actually see now Elite getting to this Rock Slide. This is also not enough to knock out, but you're going to need 3 Aerial Aces to take out that Drapion. And you need a charge attack still probably to take out this Shadow Kanto Marowak as well. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 charge attacks that you have to get to. I just don't see that happening before Elite gets to one singular Aqua Tail.
Yeah, and it looks like Reis trying to do everything he can, undercharging so he can get a couple more Aerial Aces. But again, you need, what was it, 3 to knock out the Shadow Drapion?
You're going to need 3, and you still have to take out the Azumarill as well, which is probably going to bubble you down at this point. There are 0 win conditions here for Reis. We see Elite only 2 away from this next Aqua Tail. Reis throws this next Aerial Ace, but he needs 1 more. Switch Clock is up. Elite could even try to catch it if he wants. He could probably bubble down at this point. Yeah, Reis2Occasion recognizes that this is going to be defeat in game number 2. And I really love what he did in game number 1, but he deviated from that, and Elite brought back that original lineup of the Shadow Kanto Marowak, Shadow Drapion, Azumarill team.
It works. If it isn't broke, don't fix it. And Elite, it's not broken. He can just keep bringing this over and over and over and keep winning. Reis is really on the back foot here. He just cannot seem to weather the storm that Elite is bringing here today.
Yeah, and you know, we talked about that Annihilate, but even the Annihilate, it's not like a hard answer to any of these Pokemon. In fact, it's relatively weak to all 3 of that Drapion, Shadow Kanto Marowak, and Azumarill. The only way that I could see it being very effective is if you're able to get a farm down, get ahead in energy, get a ramp up, and then start threatening Protect Shields. But you don't threaten Protect Shields versus that Azumarill. Take us through these highlights, though, Stephanie.
It looks like here we have the Mandibuzz finally able to do some damage, and I do love that undercharge being able to garner a little bit of energy, but Mandibuzz just doesn't have enough gas in the tank. It needed to have more health remaining to be able to apply all of those charge attacks we mentioned. But here we go, Jim. Take us into game number 3 of this Grand Finals reset.
Well, I may as well be taking us back to game number 2 because it's a repeat exactly what we saw. I think that we're going to be seeing Elite 2-shielding his Shadow Kanto Marowak yet again. Such a strong Pokemon with access to that hard-hitting Mud Slap. Reis2Occasion using the first Protect Shield. Actually, it's a little interesting. Elite, the first person to throw the charge attack this time. Reis2Occasion, though, he has 9 Shadow Claws. He's 1 away from back-to-back Hydro Cannons.
And again, we're going to be seeing Elite 2-shield the Kanto Marowak because that is the winning strategy. Here's the second Hydro Cannon, and here comes the second shield from Elite. It's like I have Future Sight, Jim. It's like I'm a Cresselia.
I don't want to call this one before it's over, but I have a feeling it's going to play out the same way that we saw game number 2. Actually, no. This time is a little bit of a different one. It's not the, sorry, it is not the Mandibuzz. It is actually the Diggersby. This is still going to be same situation, though. You're now bringing in the Diggersby, which forces out the Azumarill. This is a very, very strong matchup. Leaving the Shadow Drapion in the back, and I believe Elite has used both Protect Shields, and he is in range that one Aqua Tail would knock out, but you're going to really have to... This is actually a repeat, I believe, of the original game number 2 where Elite didn't throw that Bone Club.
So it's going to be on Elite to not make that same type of mistake again. We see an early attack drop from the Azumarill, so that's going to affect the damage from the bubbles. It's going to affect the damage of that Ice Beam, but the Diggersby at this point is just so low in health.
Yeah, the Diggersby is so low in health, and we're going to be seeing an Ice Beam come into it very soon. Switch Clocks will then be up. Elite's just going to swap back in to his Shadow Kanto Marowak as soon as he sees that Feraligatr or that Shadow Drapion. He'll unleash that Bone Club, and then it's going to be really difficult for Reis to win. Let's see what he does. I think he brings in the Feraligatr. In comes, okay, he can actually farm all the way down here. Reis will not be able to get to a Hydro Cannon. 2 Bone Clubs are stored. You can see Reis put his head down. This is a tough spot.
It is a really tough spot, and I don't think that bringing in the Shadow Drapion would have helped much either. I think in either situation, the Shadow Kanto Marowak was just up too much energy.
I mean, Elite just has a formula that he has down pat. It's bring that Shadow Kanto Marowak, get it aligned versus the Feraligatr or both, the Shadow Drapion, use the Azumarill to neutralize that Diggersby. Sometimes it could be the Dugong. He really just, he's one game away now from, after resetting the finals, actually becoming the grand champion here in San Antonio.
13, 14, 15, 16 wins today for Elite. With so few losses, he's had one loss here and one loss versus Reis earlier, and I think, what was it, only one or two others earlier in the day, just one.
I think he's even more than that. I think he had 13 on the loser side of the bracket, 3 in the bracket reset, that's 16. Now another 2. He needs to get to 19 wins here on Championship Sunday. He's 1 win away. He's got his team ready to go here. He knows what he wants to do. Meanwhile, Reis2Occasion, he's the one that's on the back foot, like you said, Stephanie. He needs to figure things out. The Mandibuzz, it hasn't been working. The Diggersby hasn't been working. The Shadow Feraligatr, Drapion core, it's been so tough. Do you start bringing more answers to that Shadow Kanto Marowak, and in doing so get more weak to the Azumarill? It's a tough spot for him.
It is a really tough spot, but we know that Annihilate can do some work against an Azumarill. It's certainly weak to it, but with the Rage Fists buffing yourself up and up and up, at least the Annihilate can do something against the Azumarill, and then it's really strong into the other 2 Pokemon.
Well, the one thing it doesn't have is it doesn't have Ice Punch. It's running close combat, so it's not going to be able to one-shot that Shadow Kanto Marowak unless it uses close combat, but then that's all you're going to get out of that out of that Annihilate, because you either have to swap out or you're just going to get farmed down. So it's just a really, really tough spot here for Reis. I want to say that he's going to bring 2 answers to the Shadow Kanto Marowak this time. Maybe ABA. That's what I would like to see. All right, but this is it. This is win or go home for Reis. Elite 1 game away. We have a positive lead. It is the Mandibuzz into the Shadow Kanto Marowak. A swap into the Shadow Drapion. Reis2Occasion staying in again. He can't swap in either of his Pokemon behind energy.
No, that is tough. The Feraligatr loses behind energy, and you can't go into the mirror behind energy either.
Okay, but a miscue by Elite. He actually throws on 7 Poison Stings, which allows Reis to get a full air slash through. Because of the one turn switch, that is going to be essentially 15 turns versus 15 turns. A full air slash comes through. Reis in a little bit of a better position, but again, he's not exiting this matchup. He's staying in with the Mandibuzz. Azumarill is going to come back in, and then it's just the Shadow Kanto Marowak show. He's going to have to figure out something quick.
The Shadow Kanto Marowak show with 2 supporting actors in the Azumarill and the Shadow Drapion. We've been seeing the formula time and time again. Here we have the Mandibuzz. You said he is up a little bit on energy, and we see a Protect Shield Elite. He can't utilize the 2-shield Shadow Kanto Marowak strategy anymore.
Well, I'm a bit surprised by this, but this is a reaction to him throwing on improper timing. He was unable to get to that Aqua Tail and put the Mandibuzz in farm down range for his Azumarill. He does have the Charge Attack ready to go. He can throw on good timing here. He does hang on. He will be able to get favorable alignment, which realistically, that Azumarill still has a lot of play into either of those Pokemon. It can do a lot of work. So Elite now, he may actually just swap in his Shadow Kanto Marowak. 1 shield, 2 shield. He should be able to still do a ton of pressure into either of these Pokemon. But knowing that he invested that Protect Shield, I expect to see him just get farmed down here.
Yep, so that gives the Drapion a 1 Poison Sting advantage going into the Shadow Kanto Marowak matchup. Look at how much damage these Mud Slaps do to the Shadow Drapion. Elite knows that his Marowak can tank exactly 1 of these Aqua Tails, cannot handle a second one, and then we see the Feraligatr get switched in.
Okay, you have 2 Shadow Claws currently. I think that you're on the 3 cycle now as Elite. I think that he needs to stay in this matchup for now and force a second Protect Shield, but no, he exits the matchup. He goes into the Azumarill. I'm not sure about this play from Elite. This Shadow Feraligatr is able to withstand one of these play roughs, no problem. Needs to land 3 of these Hydro Cannons, and then may even be able to do an additional Charge Attack. But keep in mind that Shadow Kanto Marowak is in range that one Aqua Tail from the Shadow Drapion can knock out as well.
Yeah, 1 Aqua Tail already applied. It cannot withstand another one. Azumarill going for the play rough, and Elite finally uses this Protect Shield to protect the Shadow Feraligatr. Can Azumarill continue to apply the pressure while Feraligatr is sitting here making waves and continuing to apply pressure to the Azumarill?
Elite needs to find a way to get energy on his Shadow Kanto Marowak, but he first needs to get this Shadow Feraligatr off the field. Okay, he has the play rough ready to go here. This is a Charge Attack priority. Reis2Occasion may force the final Protect Shield here, but then what's going to happen is Elite is going to get outpaced to that next charge attack. All right, here comes the play rough. How much energy does the Shadow Canto Marowak has? If he has one Mud Slap right now, I think that he'll be able to outpace the Shadow Drapion. He does an undercharge that forces a one-turn switch potentially for Reis2Occasion. Will he be able to get to the Bone Club? No!
And the Aqua Tail Reis2Occasion can finally knock out the Shadow Canto Marowak, and then that is going to force the Azumarill back in.
Okay, will he be able to bubble down? I don't think so. Reis2Occasion gets to the Aqua Tail. He's going to even up this series 2-2. A miscue in the early game for Elite allowed Reis2Occasion to get that Protect Shield. Once that first Protect Shield has been stripped away, it opens up all the doors and possibilities for him to win the game, and he was able to capitalize. We're going to come down to a decisive Game 5 here in our Grand Finals reset.
Let's go ahead and hear the crowd. This is the final game of the Grand Finals reset. It all comes down to this. The games that Rise has seemed to have been able to win have been capitalizing when Elite falters. When he stumbles, Rise has been able to swoop in and capitalize on those mistakes. However, if Elite can play this very last game flawlessly, I believe he can take this.
I have seen 2 wins. So Rise has had 3 wins now. He had 1 in the first series. He's had 2 here in this series. In the first series, I want to say it was not throwing the Bone Club for Elite. In another one of the games that we just saw, it was not throwing that, it was throwing on improper timing and allowing that Air Slash to go through, which then allowed the Mandibuzz to outpace, force the Protect Shield, and the rest is history. I really like what Rise did in that game 1, though. That wasn't miscues from Elite necessarily. That was Rise putting him in a tough situation, forcing him to bring in that Shadow Canto Marowak when he's down energy, which is exactly what Rise wants. I hope to see him do that in game number 5, but there's so many variables that we can still see here in this final decisive game 5, Stephanie.
Again, I am not the one that's strong with math. That is quick math with Big Phoebe, but I believe Elite is 18-5 today. We're as opposed to when he walked into the losers finals, he only had the 2 losses. So he's started to kind of ramp up on his losses here, perhaps showing signs of fatigue.
Yeah, no, it's been a long day for Elite for sure. I mean, it's been a long series in general, right? This went to 4 games to start. Now it's gone to 5 games. And we're seeing so many of the same matchups over and over again, which is tiring for these trainers. They're looking, they're saying, okay, well, there's nothing I can do in some of these situations. All right, this is it. Grand Finals reset game number 5. It's the Mandibuzz into the Azumarill!
And Elite has a strong lead, forcing Rise to bring out the Shadow Feraligatr. Elite making a little bit of a slower swap into that Shadow Canto Marowak.
He got locked into a full bubble, maybe even thrown a second bubble there. A little bit of a slow swap, like you said. I still think that if he's willing to invest 2 Protect Shields, he's going to be able to farm all the way down. But don't discount this Annihilate in the back, making its first appearance in all of these 9 games.
But is it too little, too late for the Annihilate to make it the impact that it needs? It's not locked onto the Shadow Canto Marowak. I think the best it can hope for is to get locked onto that Drapion at this point.
Because of the slow swap, Reis2Occasion actually was able to get to another Hydro Cannon. If that energy was not thrown, it would have forced, actually maybe may have not been able to. That may have been another miscue by Elite. Here comes the Mandibuzz though. You can't really swap back in your Azumarill. Azumarill though does have good play into, okay, actually swaps and catches. This is an interesting play. Elite has almost 100 energy on his Shadow Canto Marowak, and this Azumarill does have positive play into the Annihilate as well. You can't stick around in this matchup. You have to bring in the Annihilate. This could be it. 2 Shield Annihilate, ramping up this energy. Will it be able to start one-shotting some of these back Pokemon, assuming that it can get through this Azumarill?
I believe that with 2 shields on its side, I believe that it can. First, Rage Fist is going to apply, taking the Azumarill down to that down to half health, and you can hear that ramp up. You can hear the oral cue of the ramp up, and we're going to see another Rage Fist in just a couple more counters.
This next Rage Fist does knock out, but he's able to throw on good timing. But wait, no. He actually overfarms a little bit and wants to use both Protect Shields here so that he can really farm up even more energy so that the next Pokemon comes in, he may be able to immediately knock out. Switch Clock is up. Okay, hold on. Here comes the Rage Fist. I don't think this is enough to knock out. He's not at 2 charge attacks. Elite Switch Clock is up. Can he come in and just throw a Bone Club into this Pokemon? Shields are down. He comes in, he waits 1 turn, he throws the Bone Club.
Is this going to be enough to knock out? This isn't a Shadow Annihilate. It is a full still, it is a regular Annihilate. It's not enough, so we see the swap out. Here is the Mandibuzz catching not a Bone Club, but a Rock Slide.
Elite may be able to win this game on the back of the Drapion at this point. The Azumarill has been mostly neutralized. It's not going to be the answer to this Mandibuzz. Elite desperately needs to get to this next Rock Slide. Will he get there? Yes! A charged attack priority. All of this energy will be dumped into the Shadow Kanto Marowak. I think that Elite will be able to get into his Drapion, but can this Annihilate maybe farm down in one shot with a close combat?
Yes, because this is a close combat Annihilate, that Annihilate can do massive damage. The Kanto Marowak is off the field of play. There is the Drapion, but the switch timer is not up for Rise. Rise is forced to kind of sit in this matchup and can finally throw the Aerial Ace now after the Drapion has had so much energy.
I think we needed to see an undercharge there from Rise, then to just wait and wait and wait and wait. But now Annihilate is in, and the Aqua Tail is loaded and ready to go. He is going to be taking out the Annihilate. Elite lands the Aqua Tail into the Annihilate, and he is going to be your 2025 San Antonio Regional Champion.
Congratulations to Elite for having a grueling, a long journey through Championship Sunday, but he has risen. He is standing tall on the stage, giving a hug to his captain and claiming the title.